Whoa, everybody just got really, really quiet all of a sudden. Hello, everybody. How are we this evening? How are we? We're good. We are good. Brilliant. Welcome to the Backlot. Tonight is going to be very, very exciting. Cannot wait for the discussion we're about to have on this stage. But before we get into it, Kaya, music lovers, music makers, music industry supporters, and I'm going to read this verbatim. I didn't write this, but I believe this. Rule breakers. That's why everybody is in this room tonight. We believe that things can be done a little bit differently, and we're going to hear about that tonight. My name is Blake Williams, here not only as a music lover, a music maker, industry supporter, and aforementioned rule breaker, but also as your MC on behalf, of course, the Pack Music Co-operative. Welcome to the incredible Backlot here in the city of Vincent. Be looking forward to checking this place out, and it's absolutely brilliant. I'm sure you agree. And hello to everybody watching us on live stream as well. We're live on Facebook, I believe. Correct? Yeah, we are live on Facebook. So and later on, we're going to get questions not only for our panelists, but also from our live stream audience and our audience here in the room as well. A little bit more on that a little bit later. First and foremost, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we live, learn and work. That is the Whadjuk Noongar people. Offer our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to all First Nations people whose sovereignty was never ceded, always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Would also like to acknowledge the Aboriginal people being the oldest continuous living culture, and honour their songs, their music and their stories, which are woven through the creative fabric of this place that we meet tonight, and of course share our time here. We are extraordinarily privileged to be able to do so, and I'm sure you absolutely agree. Now tonight we're here to share and celebrate, and I know that the two ladies down the front, this is a lot of work and it's come to this moment. So tonight we are celebrating the launch and of course the formalisation of the Pack Music Co-operative, which must make you feel pretty good down the front, right? It's a lot of work coming to this point. Yeah, I agree. A round of applause. It's a lot of work, but it's a great idea, and that's what we're all here for today. It's really special. It's a new way of looking at music streaming as something that could and should benefit its creators in music in ways that help them become more visible and their businesses become more viable in this very digital age that we now live in. And most importantly, we're here to share how we can all, everybody in this room and watching at home, be actively involved in changing the business model for music streaming so that our industry, which has been so impacted, especially over the past couple of years, by the unintended and unprecedented consequence of our, consumer-driven consumer culture. People want things right now, they need things right now, and as a result it's changed the way that we consume art, and in a way that is exactly why we're here tonight. So at home we have a moderator. We can send questions through, I believe, straight through Facebook, excuse me. So when we get our panellists up here, we'd love to know if you've got a question, send it on through. We're going to keep this discussion pretty open, pretty honest and pretty forward. And we're going to talk about, where the industry is now in terms of streaming, and everybody on this panel has a different perspective of that and how we can see a different future for it. So share your experiences, share your stories. That is what it's all about tonight. So we have assembled an incredible panellist for you tonight. Where there's 5, if I read my signs correctly. A round of applause after each one, a massive bio, which I think they wrote themselves because they make themselves look pretty good in these bios, I must say. The first of our panellists, please, a round of applause, Mr. Greg Brenton, as he makes his way up. Now, Greg, I 100%, yeah, mate, you come closest to me. I know you wrote this. Greg Brenton is best known as a freelance session drummer. I'm going to read this as it is written. Covering a wide range of genres, he's worked with a bunch of incredible artists: Mama Red and the Dark Blues, the Steve Hensby Band, the Mark Turner Band, the Mace Francis Orchestra, Miracle Band X, the Rose Parker Band. I worked with Greg for 4 nights a week for 5 years as well. Best 5 years of my life. Greg is also a full-time instrumental music teacher for the Department of Education, and sometimes moonlights as a singer-songwriter, going by, and I agree, the far more serious-sounding name of Gregory Brenton. Audiences call him that, and his wife does too when he's done something bad. It is Mr. Greg Brenton. One more round of applause. Our second panellist tonight, Andrea Thompson. A round of applause for Andrea, making her way up. Andrea Thompson established Around the Sound in 2016. We all would have seen Around the Sound online in print form as well. A music journalist, spends much of her time writing about emerging WA bands and artists, and she is also an artist manager and event promoter. Andrea is passionate about playing a part in creating a local live industry that enables musicians to earn a living from their art, as well as one that is inclusive, diverse and visible. She believes that talent in WA is equal to anywhere on the planet. I'm sure we all agree with that. And that with well-designed strategy, sustainable funding mechanisms and active advocacy could see WA become a powerhouse on the international stage. We all agree. A round of applause for Andrea, everybody. I don't know who wrote these bios, but I want one written like this about me. Our third panellist, give it up for Rose Parker. Where is she? Oh, making an entrance as well, carrying the bag, carrying the vodka down with her as well. Rose is a much-loved singer-songwriter and guitarist who has woven her magic through the Australian music landscape for almost 2 decades, drawing on folk, old country, blues, gospel inspirations. She is a prolific, magical songwriter and storyteller with a voice that moves from folk whisperer to gospel belter, and she's released 4 albums with the Velvet Janes and her debut solo album Under the Same Sun in 2018. New music to be released in 2022. Did I pretty much get it all right? Yeah. All right. Rose Parker, everybody. Down the front, Mr. Mark Whitehouse making his way up as well. A round of applause for Mark, everybody. We have a whole range of panellists tonight, and it's important to get perspectives from different parts of the industry. Mark is the founder and owner of ProCopy, which has been a staple of the Perth audio and video production industry in WA since 1987. If you're a Perth musician who recorded anything before the digital age hit us, chances are you had it pressed at ProCopy with Mark. Mark has been supporting the industry for 33 years in the production of high-quality recorded product and with audio and video restoration and enhancement, and we all need that from time to time, and analog to digital conversion. A round of applause for Mark Whitehouse. This is a good panel. I've got to say, it's a good panel. Delilah Rose is not here tonight, but she's sick at home in bed, I believe. So if you're watching on the live stream, Delilah, hello. I'm not going to read your bio out because you're not here. I'm sorry about that. But if you send through some notes on the live stream, I definitely will read out your bio. To Grace Newton Wordsworth. Give it up for Grace down the front. Taking our 5th position on the panel tonight, Grace is a multidisciplinary artist, well known for her dynamic fronting of Joan and the Giants, a great Perth band, one of the most exciting new bands on the Western Australian music scene, in fact. The group formed in late February 2019 and have thus far released 7 singles, with their latest, Advocate, topping the Metro Community Radio charts throughout August 2021. And some of the band's career highlights include headlining the Shinzu Matsuri Festival in Broome, right? Yeah. I mean, that's a good gig. How'd you get that gig?
That's a long story.
What agency was it? I'll check them out. To 7,500 people being nominated for a Western Australian Music Award, supporting Odette on her WA leg of the 2019 Lotus Easters tour, and most recently selling out the latest headline show at the Rosemount Hotel. And did I see there's new music available? Yes? Yes? Your job is to talk on this panel tonight. It's available tomorrow, is it?
Yes, tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Give it up for Grace Newton Wordsworth, everybody. Alrighty. Artists, administrators, music journalists, session players, songwriters, and tech-based industry supporters as well. So tonight, I'm going to throw some questions to our panellists about their experience in the industry with streaming, how it's affected them, and as we go through, if you have a question, if something highlights something for you, put your hand up, because we are absolutely taking questions here and at home exactly the same as well. So, the first question, I'm just going to quick drink of water. Are you ready to go, Greg?
Yeah, mate.
All right. We're going to get a microphone for you.
He is now.
Oh, dear.
So, question for you, Greg. You're someone who works in a range of different sectors of the industry. As a working musician, what is your view on global streaming generally, as a system supposedly designed for the musician, but what do you think of the business model that underpins it? It's a multi-layered question. We can take one section at a time if you like, but what's your thoughts?
I'm not sure that it was designed for the musician, to be honest, really. I think it's just a consumer-driven business. It's pretty hard to get a leg up unless you're already quite famous on that. And I think it's probably put, the last nail in the coffin for local musicians in terms of being able to make money in that online, really. Bandcamp's still a somewhat viable situation, but Spotify, I think, is... are we allowed a name? Sorry, I'm not going to get sued, are we?
You might, but we won't.
Well, good luck, yeah. I just think that it's pretty bad for local music, pretty bad for artists who want to sort of do a second and third release. Forget even trying to make a living, just being able to fund part of your upcoming releases, I think would be nice on the back of the music that you're putting out there, and I don't see that as being anywhere near an option for the artists that I work with. I can only speak for that, really.
Do you think that using it as a financial aid as opposed to using it as a promotional avenue, do you see any benefit in something like that with the Spotify? Using it to get out to possibly audiences that you wouldn't normally have had the reach to be in front of?
In theory, but putting any sort of conversation of like a meritocracy aside or anything like that, it's basically, I think, I don't know, but I think it's sort of like a rigged system in a sense, maybe not designed as such, but it's I think putting music up there doesn't really do a lot promotionally for bands. I sort of think that's why I think the Pack is such a great idea. It's promoting at a local level. So I don't. The answer is no. I don't think it's a good option for promoting music, really.
And I guess so. The main negative that you see in something like that is the fact that financially, the return just isn't there for something that really should have a return.
Yeah, and people are encouraged to put their music up there because it's the sort of the common media for it now. Pressing LPs is sort of prohibitively costly for most local bands. I miss going to see local music sections in record shops, and there's not really a lot of that in hard copy now. I know the local bands that I want to listen to on Spotify, and that's all well and good. But as far as getting music out further afield, I just don't see that happening in the circles that I run in.
Okay, no worries. And as we move through, if there's any points you'd like to make in the room or online, please do. We're going to open this conversation as free-flowing as we possibly can. Andrea, question for you. We'll pass the mic over. As a music journalist, you get to talk to a lot of different people in the industry, artists and the like. What's the industry expressing to you about the impacts of globalized music streaming, particularly in a time where we've done it really tough over the past 2 years?
Yeah, thank you, Blake. I think Greg, are we being serious tonight? Greg. I think Greg's been really kind about globalized streaming. Streaming is the digital heroin of the music industry. Everyone's on it, and very few people get benefit from it. Organisations like Spotify are the dealers at the schoolyard gate. And people can't resist being on Spotify because what if you miss out on opportunity? But unless you're a big artist and the algorithm is tipped in favour of the bigger artists, you're not going to earn money from it. You're there, you have presence, you have the opportunity possibly to gain audience outside the local audience, but the benefit is tipped in favour of the organisations, and I'll name them again. Maybe I'll get sued. I'm looking forward to it.
If we all get sued, then we can split costs.
It's tipped in favour of organisations like Spotify. They exist to provide a consumer experience that pays little or no mind to the artists that create the music. And in doing so, they reflect so much about the music industry. There are so many hangers-on who, like mosquitoes, draw the blood of musicians and exist on that without ever replenishing the artists who create the music. I do speak to a lot of local artists, and they are doing it incredibly tough at the moment, tougher than they ever have. But even without COVID, the local music industry has not been, in my experience, a viable career path for local musicians. We have an incredible industry here in Western Australia. We create incredible music. It is diverse, it is innovative, it is fresh, and it is world-beating. But people have difficulty making a living from their music because there is no expectation that the artist should do anything but churn out music that then the industry machine, and in this instance, streaming, can then use to turn a buck for the few. And I met Mel and Harry 100 or so years ago now, not quite that long ago, but a while ago now. And the first time I heard them speak about the Pack, the idea was so simple, so compelling, and so strong that I was attracted to it immediately. It just makes good sense because it turns the streaming model on its head and it gives the power back to the artists. These are ethical, entrepreneurial women who want to give artists back the opportunity to make a living from their music, and they want to do that in a very simple, powerful, and compelling way. So, yeah, we need to get off that drug or put it over to one side. Maybe we need to stay there, but we need to gateway our artists into Spotify so that when they do get there, they actually do have a chance of gaining audience. I know one local artist, and I won't name them because they posted fairly recently saying the bottom's just dropped out of my whole world. I know one local artist only who was making a living out of Spotify. And if you check their page, they were getting millions of streams and they were just getting by. It's not fair. It's an unbalanced system, and it is. It's like a drug. We can't not do it, but no one wants to be on it.
Absolutely. Picking up on one of your points, I think it's, you know, and I mentioned this earlier, you know, the fact that we go through, it's a very consumer-driven, entertainment is really consumer-driven. We want things before we even know we want them. It's about trying to add or ascertain a value from art, right? You know, there's a function on Netflix now, which is just play me something. It's not even based on, you know, you're looking at anything. It's just give me stuff to my face and ears. And I think this is really about actually putting a value on local produced content, locally written songs, locally produced albums, and going, you know, this is a real thing. This can be a real thing. If we take a little bit more time and actually really want to foster the environment around us, you know, it's putting value on something that is already existing. And how do you change the mindset, though, of someone who is happy to, you know, put on Spotify and let the algorithm play my favourite songs for me? How do you change that mindset?
I don't think we actually need to. I think on an international level, there's an inevitability about letting the algorithm drive what we listen to, and most people are happy with that. But what we do is we change the state of play at the local level so that local artists have an opportunity to get played in their local vicinity, in what is currently, according to a report published by Edith Cowan University back in 2016, $1 billion a year industry right here in Western Australia. I'm not talking about nationally or internationally, we're talking about right here in Western Australia. And we should be looking at building those opportunities locally so that when you go to Coles, let's say on a Friday, instead of Coles Radio, you've got the Pack playing all local, original, unsigned artists every fucking Friday. Nobody really cares what they listen to in Coles, but I prick up my ears and I say, oh, hey, that's so-and-so, or whatever. But if I heard, say, Joan and the Giants or Rose Parker or Mama Red and the Dark Blues in Coles, I'd be over the fucking moon. And I'd be telling everybody in that shopping centre, hey, I know these people. These are good people. They're good local artists. You should be listening to them. If we did that, if we had businesses playing local music, then those local artists in their local territory would get an opportunity to make a living from their art, and that would help to bridge them from where they are now into that international market. So we don't need to change the algorithm. We don't need to fight the power. We just need to change our local circumstances, and that is within our keeping. That's something that we can do, and we can do quite readily, and that's something that these two women have been working very hard on for quite a while now, and hopefully this will be a threshold moment for the Pack that helps them to deliver that value to local musos so that people can make a living from their art and can expect to make a living from their art. And big corporations like Coles can play their part. They don't care who they pay for their music, but they pay someone. Why shouldn't they pay local artists? That's all I'm asking.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's about changing that mindset, isn't it? Because that's the thing. It's already here. Just put it into the places. It's funny. I think you guys may have seen on the back of the Olympics, a lot of conversation about the fact that why isn't Channel 7 playing Australian artists when we're just broadcasting Australians at the Olympics and the Paralympic Games. And I think it's really quite timely. For today, it's Are You OK Day, right? So it's a good thing that we're talking about this because your mental health is a big issue with songwriters and some really scary statistics. But also, it's a great time to be talking about this on the back of a national conversation about let's actually look in our own backyard and get this music out there, and our local, literally our actual backyard, because you never know, you might live next door to an amazing musician as well. Andrea, everybody, a round of applause. Let's move down. Any questions, remember, just absolutely yell them out as well. Even discussion points where we're happy to keep this going. We'll be doing it for about half an hour or so. Rose, I can't see what you got there. Oh, you got the microphone. Here we go. Everyone up here is pretty much a singer, or so they know how to use a microphone. This is absolutely brilliant. As an artist who made music before Spotify, only just before Spotify, how are you navigating the music streaming service? Is it an easy shift for you to go from physical copies and now everything's online? Was it an easy thing?
It was something I was told I had to do. I love songwriting. It's the lens through which I look at the world and understand it and reflect back to it and myself. And I wrote my first bad song at 15. And now in my 50s, I think I'm writing the best I've ever written. It's a passion and a process that I love. I love singing for a live audience and seeing what happens in a room with live audience. So that's the model I come from, started singing in church. So now we have Spotify, and I'm told, you're going to produce your album, then you're going to sign up with a distribution company like DistroKid or CD Baby, and then they're going to put it on all these things, and that will happen like magic. So I did as I was told, and was told it'll be your business card. It's the way people get introduced to new music. Okay, that sounds feasible, but what I can tell you categorically is that it hasn't introduced me to any new artists or any new fans. Maybe, I don't really know. I don't even know how to check that. But I know how many listeners I have, and I know how many streams there have been, and it was utterly soul-destroying to see that this beautiful product that I produced and poured my heart and soul into and played really beautiful musicians and a great studio in Perth and a great engineer and a great photographer and a great graphic artist and great digital people, all the things that go into making a product that I feel really good about and holds its own on an international stage. And I live in the most isolated city in the world. I can't tour. So I'm hoping that the digital world will be my line out to that. And I waited, and nothing happened. And so then what happens is you start to have the conversation with yourself. It must be shit. It mustn't be as good and as beautiful as I thought it was. I yesterday had a classic busy day. I get up, I walk the dog, I do the housework. At 1 o'clock I go to my day job. I'm an occupational therapist. I absolutely love it. I've always done 2 jobs for my life. And I work with patients. And then I race eating dinner in the car to a songwriting workshop that I'm delivering for WAM and my other business, which is Australian Songwriting Retreats. And I have a 30-minute pause before I launch into a 2-hour workshop delivering songwriting to eager young songwriters. which I love. And then I get home and I'm like, I want to read this white paper that Mel's emailed me in the thing. And I laid on the couch at 10 and I read to page 34 and I finally understood what I was up against. Mr. whatever his name is, who makes $2.2 billion, and his executives that all make $250,000 a year. I went, gee, that'd be nice. What does that feel like? And the major record companies that are the major shareholders. And just a little veil fell down and I suddenly realised that it wasn't about me and it wasn't about the quality of my product or the quality of my songwriting. It was a great big fucking machine, the same as it has always been. And I do not want to sit here and be someone that made CDs and could sell 250 at a CD launch. I have to embrace technology. I love technology. I love hearing new music, but we have to, as Andrea was saying, we can't stop that, but is there an alternative? Is there something we can be involved in? So I'm here really not even to contribute tonight, but to listen and to learn and to be part of a community and a team who can make a difference for all musicians. I'm a passionate Western Australian. When I write songs, I'm writing as a West Australian woman who's lived here, whose family arrived on the third boat as an import. But I love this country. I love the wheat belt. I love the oceans. I love living here. I toured America a lot. At one point, a band I was in half wanted to stay there and I just couldn't think of anywhere else I wanted to be except right here. I want to write songs that reflect West Australian culture and our values and who we are. And I want to take that out to the world. And I will keep doing that. And I'm just amazed at what Mel and Harry have achieved so far. And I want to thank you all for coming.
Thanks, Rose. Don't pass the mic over just yet, though, because you mentioned that you do the songwriting workshops with up-and-coming songwriters. They're young, they're getting into the industry, they're just sort of learning how the things work. Well, how are they seeing the future of where they're headed? They're very young bands, very young songwriters. Are they optimistic? Are they...
Yeah, they are, because they're artists, you know. One thing I've had to learn is how to be lighter on my feet. So many younger musicians are DIY. You know, I'm not an electronic musician. I can't sit in a room with a computer and make amazing things. I play a guitar, I sing. I want other musicians with me as well. So there's quite a big contingent that goes with what I do. Because I also love the collaboration, I love the connection. Isn't music about connection? Isn't that what it's all about? So I can't sell that out. But there are lots of amazing people making lots of amazing music, and technology is part of that, and embracing that is part of it. But for me, as a person who facilitates songwriting, it's really about a person, a brain, and a tool, painting a picture and telling a story. Then how they want to colour that is really up to them. So to answer your question, yes, songwriters are optimistic and sad all at the same time, because that's the territory, mining that. It's probably the beginning of the process, Blake. I think songwriters start without, like as an artist would, without thinking about the commercial application at the end. You have to, they've got to be two separate things. What we're talking about here is how do we take that art and have a viable business model.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly, I think, what every artist sees in something like this, the fact that they are communicating with people that are in their locality and also that it is financially worthwhile.
One thing that both Andrea and Greg have said that I want to amplify is that what I think that is, it's about educating people. I find I'm having conversations all the time at gigs and even at work with a patient today. I had this conversation. Or at a gig. Oh, albums for sale. Great. Oh, you buy a CD. Oh, my car doesn't have a CD player anymore. I don't really play CDs. I only play Spotify. Okay. Oh, but you're on Spotify, aren't you? Yes. Oh, great. I'll listen on that. Exit stage left. So then I might say, do you know that I make and I didn't know what the figure was, now I do, 0.0005% on 1,000 streams, which equates to a cup of coffee every time my song's played 1,000 times. At that point, the average Aussie's jaw drops. Because, you know, we still want a fair go in this country. People don't know. And when they know, they go, oh, Then they come back, they might buy a CD, or they might buy it on the second or third time, or they might go to pay per song service. Another conversation I had today with someone who is developing their own practice, enlarging it. We were looking at getting music streamed into the clinic. But then I found out the APRA AMCOS licence, it's $1,300 a year. I said, we can't afford that. She said, so we went and found this other Writer Spy, which is instrumental music, and that was only $140 a year, so we can afford that. I said, what does that give you access to? She said, I don't know, a website where people have signed their licences so we can stream all of this instrumental music. I said, is it Australian? No, I don't think so. I said, okay, so none of those royalties are coming to any Australian musicians, and if you had paid your APRA AMCOS licence, those royalties would have come to musicians like me. Again, her jaw fell open, she didn't know. So what I loved reading in the white paper is how what we need is a conversation and collaboration between artists and music makers, between local businesses, local government, state government and federal government. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. Rose Parker, everybody. It's about that education, and people, just genuinely not really thinking much further than that, because everyone's got a lot of stuff going on in their life. They think they're doing the right thing, but this is an option for them to check multiple boxes at the same time. It's a win-win, right? Mark from ProCopy. So, Mike, a lot of your work is dependent on physical product, has been for, as we heard, 33 years. How are you finding the impact of streaming on your business, and how are you needing to pivot, that word we've heard more in the last 18 months than the history of the word existing, or reinvent what you offer to manage in this new marketplace?
There's a few politicians I'd like to actually pivot because they have got no idea what this industry is going through. I've spoken to several over the last 12 months, and to be honest, I'm pretty disgusted with the way that they've treated the events and the entertainment industry in general. I think they need a big wake-up call. We still sell a lot of CDs and DVDs and USBs. It's migrated to other areas, and I think that's why the Pack and what they're doing is actually going to broaden the scope of what artists can do in order to get out to the public. It's another tool in the belt, so to speak. We have changed a lot over the years. Our industry has always evolved. Before I started ProCopy, I was doing live sound. And in fact, one of the first big gigs I did was at the Shinju Matsuri with a band in 1977, which makes me... It was the Dean Brothers Band, actually, which was a cover band, which went on to be the Jets and Beatniks. And we toured all over the place. Fantastically vibrant industry at that time. So when Grace said she's just been up there, I'm like, do I actually mention that I went up there probably a little bit before she was born? But so it's wonderful to have done cassettes for Rose a couple of years back, and to have done CDs for Grace recently with her product. So yeah, we've continued to evolve, and we always will do, because that's the nature of what we do. We have to adapt. We can't stand still, and the whole music industry can't stand still. There have been some tremendously clever developments. Apple with the iPod, MP3s, when you had an 18K modem, that was a very slow modem back in the day, and you had to send an audio file to a radio station, it had to be compressed. You couldn't send a 44 megabit file to a radio station, it'd take a day. Now we take all of that kind of stuff for granted. You send somebody a song, a demo or a rough mix across to their phone so they can listen to it 10 minutes after they've left the studio. I actually went to a trade show in America in, I think around about 2000, 1999 maybe, and there was a lot of talk at the time about MP3 and what it was going to do to the industry. And there was people like George Martin there talking, and they're going, I've been working 50 years on developing the best possible recording that I could, and now we're taking several steps backwards by releasing stuff on MP3. And back in those days, MP3 was even worse than it is today. It was pretty horrendous. But the whole streaming industry is based on that kind of technology. So one of my concerns as an engineer, as a recording engineer and a technician, is that what's actually happening is the artists aren't being represented to the best of their ability by the technology that is now out there. And again, as Rose said before, it's an education thing as far as the public are concerned. On my website, I put some files on there. I digitised about 2 minutes of a Dave Gilmour song. And I did some work on it, and I actually worked out what was missing in this audio compared to the original track with the MP3 and the M4A, the iTunes version. If you go on and listen there, you'll be amazed at what actually has been taken out of the song. It's basically his guitar. Now, the only thing that allows this technology to get away with it is the fact that our hearing is kind of like a persistence of vision thing. You fill in the gaps as you're going along. But if you compare the original to the streamed version or the MP3 version, you'll be amazed at what's missing. Now, from a lover of music perspective, from an engineer, from a technical perspective, that horrifies me. And the public don't know. They actually don't know. It's like, here it is. This is what's missing from the music. So I'm sure that one of the primary concerns of the Pack business model is to ensure that the musicians that have their product played there, it's done to the best of the ability that the technology will allow. Don't allow poor quality streaming and things like that. Make sure that the music is encoded properly in the first place so that they're represented. It's a passion of mine. I hope it becomes a passion of everybody else to make sure that artists like Rose and Grace and other people in the room, that their music is heard as how they intended it to be. After spending hundreds, thousands of dollars in a studio trying to get it right. It seems an inequity to me. So we'll continue to evolve in the way we deal with things. We do a lot of digitising work now, both video and audio. We still do a lot of recording work, and we still do a lot of other products. So we'll be around for a long time, I hope, so that we can help everybody get this initiative up and going, because I think it's the type of thing that it's taken a long time to get to this stage. 20 years ago, I went to that meeting, and now there's some chance of change to make sure that the artists get what they deserve out of this whole process, which are the ones that have supported $1 trillion company. There's something wrong with that.
Absolutely. In fact, it kind of does blow my mind, $1 million studio, and then people listen to it with $2 headphones. It's internally frustrating, right? But I think there's a point that we've heard many, many times so far on the panel, which is education in some ways, and going, things can be different. Just because we're doing it one particular way doesn't mean that it always has to be that way. And that's what the Pack is really all about. Round of applause for Mark, everybody. There were a lot of technical words in that speech. 44K, 11K. Did you understand a lot of that, Greg?
Sorry about that.
Did you understand a lot of that technical stuff going on down there? No, me either. Sounded very impressive, though. And it is about, in many ways, what Mutt was talking about, having that quality of the product that Grace spends hours and hours working on. Should I use Reverb 3 or Reverb 47? You want to have that actually heard by the end user. So, Grace, a question to you. Relatively new band, Joan and the Giants, formed at a time when streaming was really becoming a thing. Everybody had to do it. Have you managed to use the streaming platforms to generate any income? Have you at all, firstly?
I mean, I got a few coffees. That was nice. Delicious.
So we're in the black.
Not really. I mean, with all of our songs added up, we probably had about 80,000 streams on our Spotify from seven songs so far. But that adds up, I don't know, to $300, $400 or something. So very little when you're putting, I don't know, a few $1,000s per song, and then you add the costs of marketing, mastering, like PR, you add a lot of costs on top of that. So you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars per single, even more for an EP or an album, and then getting like, what, $300, $400. But not even that. The last single's got like 2,000 streams on it so far. So it definitely, when it comes to like Are You OK Day, as a modern artist, it can definitely be challenging. Especially because we're self-managed. I manage our band at the moment. And so as a self-managed band, you're thinking about, one, writing the music and having the creative space to do that. And then you're thinking about the funding to actually record the music, pay an engineer and a producer, master the song, how you're going to market the song, getting all your email lists together, promoting the song, going on radio of the song, then trying to like keep it going after it's actually out. Rather than just fading away a week after or the day after. You know, it can go for a little bit, but it tends to kind of fade away. And I was looking up the recent stats, and with Spotify, there's been about 40 to 60,000 songs uploaded per day. When you think about that, it's one song per second, which is a lot of music in the world internationally going onto this platform. And when you're just a little self-managed artist in Perth, you're like, what the fuck? How do I make myself stand out from that? And how do I do a big pitch to Spotify, where you have to go on Spotify for artists and be like, please love me, please just put me on an editorial playlist? And then obviously we haven't got on one yet. That's honestly the dream for every artist, to get on an editorial playlist, because then you're reaching millions of new ears. And that's definitely the massive benefit that a couple of Perth artists have been fortunate enough to get.
And how do people get onto those playlists?
Oh, I wish I could tell you.
So it's a dark art.
I would tell you if I could. To be honest, I think it's a lot of things I'm finding out as I go along my failing. Well, I've failed a lot, which is really important. I actually really encourage trying and failing, because that's honestly the only way you can learn. And we've been a band since 2019 as Joan and the Giants, but I've been playing and writing music for the last 8 years in the scene. And 2 years as Joan and the Giants, which just because I didn't like the previous stuff, so we changed our name. Don't tell anyone that. But as Spotify playlisting, what was the question?
It's okay. No, you. I'm sure you answered it in there. One of the benefits, I guess, of of streaming is, as you said, you can get onto a playlist like that, find millions of potential new fans, even if they're fans for 9 seconds or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
The benefit, I guess, of the Pack also is, in a different way, you are reaching people, but they're local people. So they are people that can come to your gig playing at the Sewing Room. So that's a different element that we haven't really had before.
I think that is a massive benefit locally, because half the time when you're promoting your own shows, you're dragging every third cousin down to come and watch you, so you can get a really good audience there. And Perth, like the Perth audience, I think a lot of people have obviously got really into the Netflix and chill kind of side of things on the weekends, but like the importance of actually coming to shows is vital for artists to survive. And I think things like the Pack is just so important, what you're doing, because we do need local music everywhere. We need it in the shops. We need it, in, public transport. We need it everywhere so people can hear it and support it and actually come to shows, so artists like me can not work 5 jobs to support music,
Thank you very much, Grace. Every discussion point we've had tonight, it kind of, I just feel like I'm going, of course. Why doesn't this already exist? And I'm sure you guys would have come across this, and we're going to hear from Harry and Mel in a few moments as well. Why does this not currently exist? But hey, you're doing it, and that's why we are all in this room and watching on the live stream from the comfort of living rooms around Western Australia / the world. Do we have any questions, any discussion points in the room, or any coming from online that to any particular members of the panel, an insight that they've brought up, or just a point that you've thought in the last half an hour? Anything milling around in our minds?
I've actually got one, sorry.
Oh, wow. I didn't expect that. The one person with the microphone.
I'm so sorry. But just on your point, Mark, just before about the quality of the music, I've had a massive battle just in my own mind with Spotify because we spend all this money and time and love and passion into making a song, and we're so happy with the quality, but every time we've uploaded to Spotify, the sound has been compressed and we've lost a lot of volume on our songs, and they don't stand up against like the big international acts, just even volume-wise. So I need help, please. But yes, back to you.
Is this a job offer? Is that what's happening here? Can you remaster my music? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, they've actually got levelling mechanisms in there where supposedly what happens is it more or less, you put any track up there and it tries to get them all out at the same volume so that people at the other end, the consumer, isn't constantly adjusting the volume control on their car player or their headphones and stuff like that. So it has a lot to do with the way the tracks were originally produced, the mastering process and things like that, but there's also a couple of other tricks with things like Spotify and those other streaming services to get the apparent loudness up there without their algorithm pulling it back down again. So there are a couple of things there. It's one of those stupid little games that you have to play. There was something that I meant to say before as well, Blake. Probably about 10 or 11 years ago now, I actually put a calculator on our website that calculated the return for CDs, streaming, Napster at the time, I think, or something like that. And one of the striking things to me, I actually had to go back in and check the calculations because I thought this is just ridiculous. But to earn $800 in US dollars, you had to have a track streamed 6 million times a month. Now, if you do the maths on that, as I'm prone to do, you work out that that's 30-odd radio stations playing the tracks non-stop for a month. Just one track. You very quickly realise that's almost an impossibility. So that's the reason why they don't pay very much, is because they have to manage all of these tracks that are out there. So it very quickly became obvious to me that, you know, to be honest, one CD sale is equivalent to about 500 streams. So if most of your market is your local musician fan base, that's the best way to get your money back fairly quickly for the recording process. It's still that way. And I love the fact that has been mentioned that what the Pack does is generates the contact between the consumer and the artist and the live gigs and their merchandise all into one thing. So eventually the musicians get paid for people attending their gigs, their profile gets raised, which is a benefit to the whole industry. Not just that artists themselves, but people then start going out looking for other talent. I watched a band last night, absolutely amazing. It's like, this is magical stuff. Good music on a day like Are You OK Day is brilliant for the soul. And yet what's happening at the moment is we're pushing that further and further away. I don't like it. Yeah.
It's being pushed further away, but this is bringing it a little bit closer, right? That's what we're all in this room for. Please give it up for our panel, everybody. Greg, Andrea, Rose, Mark and Grace. It's a tough thing to kind of stand up here and talk and go follow tangents in your head, but you guys did an amazing job. Any last questions or any questions from out here? Yeah, sure, down the front. We've got a microphone as well. Shireen's coming across. Who's got a big voice?
So what does anyone reckon about records and the viability of vinyl? Because there's been obviously a bit of an uptick in people's interest in acquiring vinyl, the ceremony of putting it on the deck and dropping the needle and so forth. And at the same time, people's threshold of paying, $40 for a record is quite high. So there are a number of, publishers nationally that, and they're little small publishers, I guess, that have become popular and some of their albums become collectible because they do limited runs. And I'm just wondering if there is an opportunity there in the sort of monetisation of this thing that's a little bit more less digital and more, sort of performance oriented. And actually also, a lot of us who were old enough to remember records the first time round, it was a real ritual, you know, to just sit there, listen to side A, side B. And the benefit now would be for new releases to assume that kind of value and be played alongside, you know, Bowie records or Led Zeppelin records or whatever.
And
So
I absolutely agree, and I love the romanticism of it. And I, as an artist who's about to go into the studio again, have already made the decision that I will be doing vinyl this time. What I don't, because I want exactly what you just said. And I'm very inspired by the 70s singer-songwriter and still reference that. So I want my beautiful, loyal fans to have that experience. When I did the album last year, I said I would sign it, say, please play in the car with the windows down while driving past our oceans, because that's where I wanted to take people. So this one might be pour a glass of red, put the needle on and sit down in a comfy chair. What I don't know yet is how much that's going to cost me, but Mark can tell me.
I won't. Yeah, I won't tell you just yet, because
That's another gig, Mark.
Mum and Dad used to have a record shop. So, in fact, their first record shop was in the UK in the late 50s. And then when we came out to Australia, Mum, after the kids had gone to school, Mum had nothing to do, so she's like, I'll start a record shop again. So they used to supply to a lot of the clubs in town and the radio stations at the time and things like that. And so it's always been a passion part of the industry for me. And I think anecdotally what I'm seeing now is the vast majority of people that buy vinyl don't actually play it. They collect it. There are some that do play it. I used to have parties with friends and we would each have bought the local whatever album it was at the time. And Saturday night we'd catch up at the house and we'd just play the vinyl until we virtually wore it out at 3 o'clock in the morning. It'd just be side A, side B, side A, side B, go and get another beer. So there is a romanticism about vinyl. I think from a technical perspective, if I was to put my technical hat on it, I wouldn't produce vinyl anymore because I just hear the difference. And I think there's so many technical issues with vinyl that, again, coming back to that quality issue, it doesn't actually represent what was done in the studio. It's close and it's got a vinyl flavour, and that's what people like about it. But from a technical perspective, I have issues. And that really has only been in probably the last 5 to 10 years where digital technology has got so good that it actually has far superseded what was available in an analogue environment.
It's interesting though, just Googling, I just had a quick Google right there on the ARIA website. Last year in vinyl, 32% rise in sales. In fact, the highest rise of all mediums, now making up almost 6% of the entire industry is vinyl. So it's kind of an interesting thing. What makes up 83% is streaming. So quite a way to go. But yeah, absolutely. I think that'll always have a place, right? People love that romanticise. And giving your business card out as a piece of vinyl is so much nicer than, yeah, scan my QR code. How awesome is my QR code? I think we might have to leave it there. We have...
Just a couple of online questions.
Hello.
We'll make them quicksies. One of them is, and I think this is not necessarily referring to vinyl, but albums, as in album-length production. Is the era of the album dead?
No. It's not dead. No. Sorry. Come back up.
I think about this a lot because obviously we're living in the world of singles where everyone's just like, single, once a month, get it out, make sure people pay attention to me. Like, I think, though, that there is still a place for albums. I listen to an album every day. I'm absolutely obsessed. I know that there's this... there's something really beautiful happening with a lot of the younger generation as well, some I teach, some I do gigs with, some come to our shows, and people just love music. They love live music. People are getting cassettes again as well, and people do love vinyl. I haven't got any yet, it's expensive, but I will one day. But albums are still very much a thing, and it's my dream to make one. So, yeah.
You do it, girl. From, I think Andrea's getting a microphone, but just quickly, I work on a TV show, music TV show, and it's interesting, of 15 guests in a series, 15 would not be doing an album at the moment. They'd be doing an EP or single. Even just dedicated single releases that have nothing to do with the previous single. So it's interesting. I think because of the streaming kind of vibe, it's just what can I have 30 seconds to make an impression. How do I do that really quickly? I do love the idea of an album though, and you should do one. I'd buy it.
You definitely should. I'm going to quickly put a counterpoint of view because we can't afford to get carried away with the romanticism of yesteryear. I grew up on albums. I grew up on records. I still collect records even though I don't have a record player. And I pay for them because that's fair. But I collect them because of everything that goes along with them. The artwork, the stuff that you find inside. I don't know whether anyone else here used to read what has been scratched into the grooves on the outer of the records. There's some amazing stuff on those things. Go through your record collection, have a look. They have everything. They're like little puzzles that you can decode and use over and over again. But we cannot afford to get carried away with the romanticism. Vinyl is dead. Albums are dead. Digital streaming is the way of the future. In fact, it's not just the way of the future, it's the way of now. So we've got to change a business model that is currently not in favour of artists so that we can be part of the future, be part of the present, and turn that business model's focus onto artists. And yeah, sure, albums and vinyl are part of that, but if we hark back to yesteryear and say, oh, wasn't it lovely when we were kids, we won't actually achieve anything for artists today and tomorrow. And what we're about is trying to achieve something for artists today and tomorrow so that they can create art, whatever art they want to create, and they can make a living out of it without Grace having to do 5 jobs, without Rose having to do 2 jobs. They can be artists, they can make a living, and it can be secure. So we can't afford to go down memory lane or get carried away with the romanticism of things. We have to acknowledge the reality that digital streaming and also whatever disruptive innovation is coming next are here and they're here to stay. And we need to make that work in favour of artists.
Absolutely. The pendulum has swung too far in one direction, right? One more round of applause for our entire panel, everybody. Greg, Andrea, Rose, Mark and Grace down the end. You guys are done now. You can take a seat, take the microphone. You can finally go get a wine from the bar in a few moments. But now we move on to our second section, and thank you for submitting your questions online as well. I'd like to introduce you to 2 people sitting in the very front row, the most accessible spot to the lectern. 2 people who courage doesn't seem, this is what it says in the script, but I think, and which you wrote about yourself. The courage doesn't seem to cut it for me. These incredibly talented ladies, long-serving advisory group, close-knit music community. They've been working tirelessly with other jobs to support what they are doing and why we are all in this room together. Between them, I don't believe this either, 60 years experience. There you go. Give or take. In the music industry, they've been producing music events and music for non-for-profit, musical theatre, teaching, and of course working in local original productions as well. So when Mel and Harry talk about the music community that they are fighting for, they are truly talking about the community in which they belong, and we all absolutely know that. They are incredibly passionate, no doubt. You'll pick up on that when they jump to the lectern in just a moment. But our fearless founders, please, a massive round of applause for Mel and Harry right down the front.
Glorious, absolutely glorious. I have no idea where we are.
It's the backlot.
It's the backlot. All right, let's do this. We met the panel and they said glorious things, and now we're going to say some glorious things. All right.
So we're very nervous for performers. And because it's, well, me, I'm going to speak for me. I have a terrible memory, so I am going to read my stuff. So bear with me. How do I turn the on button on this one?
Oh, good on you.
I'm doing technology as a job. And I forgot where the on button was. All right. Hi, I'm Harry, also known as Mama Red, so from Mama Red and the Dark Blues. Harry Deluxe is my name that most people know me by. This is Melanie Bainbridge, my partner in life and crime. quite often both. Mostly crime. So we're the co-founders of the Pack Music Co-operative. Now, between us, yes, we do, Blake, have 60-odd years' experience. So the camera is way back there, which is great because it's true. We're old. In the music industry, and yes, we're beginning to think there should be a 12-step program for that. But we're not here to talk about us. We're here to talk about you, our local music industry, and the people who love it, live it, and work in it, including us. So,
Streaming. We have a problem. Harry, can you convince anyone to buy a CD at a gig anymore?
no, actually.
What about a digital download?
Nope.
Okay. And how much would you get paid for a spin on a streaming platform?
So we have talked about this before. On average, it's around 0.005 of a cent.
But now it's 3.8.
About 3.8. So it's actually gone down. But if I get 1,000 spins, I can buy myself an almond latte in overpriced Perth cafe,
Yeah, nice.
which I often do.
Nice.
Not from my spins, though.
So how much for 1 million streams on YouTube?
About $700.
All right, Spotify, Apple Music.
Somewhere between 4 and 7K. Less than the cost of professionally recording an album. So our last one was 15K. But if anyone thinks getting 1 million streams without labels and marketing dollars behind them, well, tell them he's dreaming. So, my turn. Sorry, told you we were nervous. Oh, aren't we cute? So we know that the financials of major streaming services suck for local original unsigned artists. We are talking unsigned artists here. But it's not just about the money. It's killing our industry, literally. So here are some important stats for you. 65% of Aussie music industry workers suffer depression or anxiety. This is compared to 12.5% of the general population. Over 25% of musicians and over 50% of music industry workers have attempted or considered suicide. Now, we think this is pretty damn appalling, and these are pre-COVID stats. Imagine what the world looks like for the not-so-famous working musicians now. And the key contributing factor, so you guessed it, I would imagine, it's financial pressures. It's Are You OK Day today, as Grace has pointed out. And while we need to talk about mental health generally, we also need to acknowledge where it hits sector disproportionately.
So there's a lot of words on that page.
Yeah.
All right.
You wrote them.
So it took a while for the world to catch up to the Pack's largely unheard lament. We've been whinging about this for a while now, as a lot of you in the room know. But there are a number of recent research papers and parliamentary inquiries, even Aussie ones, believe it or not. Not that anyone's done anything about those parliamentary inquiries yet, but they've published them, which is nice. And there's even some books by White House economists that have been published that all tell us that streaming is stuffed. We won't tell you all the findings, but suffice it to say, it doesn't paint a pretty global picture for the music industry. Here's just a taste of what they've said. In 2021, while musicians were facing economic devastation due to COVID, Spotify tripled in valuation to $66.9 billion. Major labels who make non-transparent deals with the streaming companies are earning approximately, take a deep breath, $1 million per hour from streaming music alone. Meanwhile, the average rate per stream for artists on Spotify, the dominant streaming service, is about 0.0038 cents now. So it's even gone backwards since our white paper was published. That number has been decreasing, and even as Spotify's value has increased. Daniel Ek, Spotify's CEO, now has a personal net worth of $4 billion. So, musos, let that sink in when you look at your next streaming check. Payments are so poor that many more musicians are simply walking away. According to a survey taken this year by 5,800 artists across Europe, 90% of performers indicate the streaming market has given them no meaningful return in income. Polls in the UK and Sweden reveal that 1 in 3 musicians are planning to quit their profession. Music recording is expensive and time-consuming, as we've discussed, and as musicians' incomes continue to decline, the production of recorded music could actually completely change from a viable profession that we all used to work in to an amateur practice only the wealthy can enjoy. Streaming is quite literally destroying music. So let's do some maths, because, maths are not my favourite thing, but we're going to do some anyway. The world's...
Take a deep breath.
Yeah, because she's going to fall over this. The world's 4 biggest music labels are responsible for 87% of content available on Spotify. 87%. 4 big labels. And 78% of Spotify's revenues go directly back to those labels. Incidentally, most of them also have large investments in the streaming services. So most of the major streaming services are closely comparable to that. So that kind of tells you where the money's going. You just follow the money. In 2020, there are 8 million artists on Spotify, on the platform, who have released a total of 1.8 million albums. But out of these 8 million artists, only 57,000 generate 90% of all streams on Spotify. So this is the top tier, the giants among men, arguably the best of the best. Ed Sheeran. This 0.7% of artists rake in 90% of the revenues. In 2020, Spotify claims to have paid out more than $5 billion. Doing the maths, this means that $4.5 billion went to those 57,000 artists, or rather their labels, which on average loosely equates to $79,000 per artist. But even amongst that 0.7 elite, there are huge differences. So only 800 of those artists received $1 million or more in that year. And only 7,500 made over $100,000. So for those of you sitting in the room in cushy government jobs like me, most of the artists on Spotify streaming don't earn as much as you do from their music. So even in that top tier, there are around 49,000 artists who made less than $100,000 per year from their recorded product. And these are the sign-supported popular artists being paid by these major labels for their creative labour at less than what most mid-level government employees get paid. So if that's what the view's like from the top, imagine what it looks like for the other 7,943,000 of us. Are you angry yet? Good. All right. I will end my rant with a quote from the 2021 UN report on streaming. Streaming is not paying artists fairly, and it's getting worse. Per-stream payments for interactive streaming are so small that even for unsigned feature performers who collect 100% of available streaming royalties for themselves, royalty payments are unsustainable and out of balance compared to the value transferred to the streaming services. The existing inequality has attracted considerable attention and frustration from performers who ask, why does everyone in the streaming economy seem to be prospering except the performers whose work drives it all? Anyone saying Uber? The imbalance is particularly acute in the COVID-19 era and is likely to remain so due to the long-term economic scarring of the creative community from the pandemic.
So, how do you feel right now?
We depressed yet?
Look, we maintain that streaming as a system is relatively benign. It's just a service, a tool, a piece of technology. And like all technology, it's the intention of those who own, run and invest in the streaming services that needs to be questioned. To recap, the current streaming business model, 1, is built for investors, labels and shareholders, not for the independent creators. Sends 70% plus of its revenues to 4 major labels who don't play fair with their own artists. Prioritizes signed artists backed by big marketing money while making unsigned artists invisible. It's designed on algorithms that steal the delight of discovery and curate on basis of popularity, often bought and paid for by big labels. But there is another problem here, and one that wouldn't take much to address. So in a time of rolling lockdowns and closing music venues, the focus on arts investment into infrastructure, touring and rescuing live events cannot guarantee income to the very large but poorly organised cohort of struggling independent artists across Australia. It doesn't even acknowledge the current volatility of the industry where it actually intersects with artists. Sorry, I'm tripping over my own tongue right now. I'm a little bit angry inside. But sadly, the alternative of providing direct funding for the recording of new music is also an overly simplistic intervention in the system. Although well-intentioned, it's largely meaningless if there are no viable avenues for the musicians to sell their recorded product. And as we've noted right now, there are not. In WA, we have a small contemporary music fund which mainly funds new recordings by unsigned artists, but asks of those artists how they are going to market these recordings in a system designed to keep them invisible. As artists, I truly wish we knew. In essence, it's an investment with no return. No venture capitalist would invest in a product without a market fit. But in effect, that is exactly what the funding intervention suggests. The major streaming services have completely changed the marketplace, but our policy interventions have not changed to address this reality. They simply ask how we, as artists, are going to change the way we make music to fit into it. In a war where our industry is besieged from all sides by technology and digital disruption, we have brought our piddly policy knife to a billionaire plutocrat's gunfight. Sorry, anyone who knows our album, that would make sense. Frankly, it's not going to cut it. But by investing in projects designed specifically to provide sustainable revenue streams to artists, that's where we could see real systemic change.
So I hear you ask, and WA funding bodies have asked us this, so we know it's a legit question. How do you fix streaming with streaming? Well, you don't. We're not building a streaming service, we're building a community service. As a member-owned platform cooperative, streaming will be our tool, not our business model. So why is this a new model? Well, this is the very nutshell version of a very much longer conversation. But basically, what we used to call the sharing economy, which sounded altogether huggy and lovely, we now know to be little more than traditional capitalism with a new, even more pervasive and inscrutable vehicle, the internet. In platform capitalism, owners, investors and shareholders gather the value created through their platforms without necessarily sharing it equitably with the providers of that value. Problematically, they often also give rise to exploitation of workers and devaluing of labour. In contrast to these kinds of platforms, like, say, YouTube and Uber and Spotify, platform cooperatives are owned and governed by their users. The central idea of the platform co-op is that those who create the most value in the system, for example, the Uber drivers or the music creators, should own and control the systems on which that value is distributed. It's a genuine move towards an ethical economy based on ethical technology, communal ownership, democratic governance, and equitable distribution of value. And it's exactly how we are different. We're for representing unsigned original artists and getting them played and paid in their own local communities. We're for geofencing to put local music in local businesses, venues and government spaces. We're for giving no money to major labels and sending no royalties offshore. We're creating music-powered local economies. We're for putting a patron-powered platform cooperative built by musicians, for musicians and owned by musicians. And we're for underpinning that platform with blockchain, creating a fair, transparent and secure distribution of funds. And we're for giving 40% of all revenues directly to artists forever. And we're excited by that. And the Pack will use 3 established technologies, which we all kind of know about. There's nothing new here. And I guess that's what we're kind of saying about the Pack generally. There's nothing new here. Streaming's not new, geofencing's not new, none of this stuff is really new. Just putting it together in a different way, underpinned by a different philosophy. And we'll use 3 established technologies to develop this radically new model for music streaming. By using geofencing or virtual perimeters, the pack will prioritise hyperlocal connections between musicians. Yeah, this is where we are. Between musicians, listeners and businesses. This will enable listeners to discover unsigned artists who make music local to where they live, work and play, encouraging the development of local fan bases, attendance at local gigs and additional income for musicians and music venues through ticket sales, merch and audience spending. This is connected to the PAC's commitment to creating healthy local arts economies, and we're creating meaningful realised exposure. By using machine learning advancements, the PAC will learn about listeners' and businesses' music preferences. AI is a staple of contemporary music streaming, from Spotify to YouTube, and an essential feature of a local music streaming alternative. However, the PAC will use this to develop deeper relationships between musicians, listeners and businesses. PAC membership alerts local music lovers when they're in a PAC streaming business, allowing listeners to interact with that business's playlist and to access localised rewards. This AI-based innovation anticipates increased customer retention and spend at PAC streaming businesses, and allows valuable localised cultural and economic data sharing with local and state government. So the PAC's partnering with Ninja Software to develop this technology. Intrinsic Global's blockchain payment technologies are sophisticated, frictionless and secure, instilling confidence in listeners and musicians alike. By using blockchain payment technologies, the PAC demonstrates our commitment to transparent and fair pay for artists. The PAC will change the current statistics of streaming, generating economic and flow and mental health benefits for local original musicians by directing significant revenue, 40% as we said earlier, to artists. The remaining 60% of revenues will support the PAC's technology development, curation, expansion and commitment to supporting, curating and including ATSI, COLD and LGBTQI+ musicians so that all our voices are heard and valued. Additionally, the PAC will facilitate Australian musicians to create new risk-taking and experimental music without having to capitulate to the current diminishing uniqueness trends inherent in music on streaming platforms. I'm sure you've all noticed songs are getting really short and really annoyingly similar. By delivering higher payments to artists than existing streaming platforms, the PAC's ethical and sustainable arts advocacy business model enables participating musicians to dedicate more time to their music, away from the pressure and intervention of record labels and marketing. This way, we keep our unique Aussie sound and make sure that our people can make their music the way they want to make it. We'll always support a safe environment and wellbeing for people working in the arts. The PAC is committed to mental health in the arts, and our projects and initiatives, including fairer pay for artists, are designed to mitigate the external pressures on mental health. The PAC champions a healthy music industry through healthy musicians. We'll thoughtfully support the skills and capabilities of emerging ATSI, COLD and LGBTQI+ musicians through the dedicated inclusion and curation of their music, and make commitments to inclusion quotas on our system always. In short, in local government areas, local artists will be making and spending local money. It'll mean real convertible exposure, real active data, real community connection, and it'll mean we're communicating real-time play data to licensing bodies, making sure every artist who gets played gets paid.
So, and yeah, just like us, people do care. The coolest thing about the PAC is that anywhere there's a local music scene, we'll be there, keeping it vibrant and viable. We can be a global giant and a local hero. Our simple premise is that local people want to hear local music from wherever is local to them. It's also our scaling strategy. Live in Dunedin, Detroit, Derry, Dubai, you can be a PAC patron. And yeah, we know we're swimming with sharks in a very crowded tank, and Spotify has totally munched the major market share. But in a sense, we're not really looking to compete with the major streaming services. We're only working with unsigned artists, which is a pretty small percentage of the revenue of most of the big players. We reckon they won't even see us as a blip on their capitalist radar. We also know that people buy multiple subscriptions. I mean, how many of us have Netflix and Stan and Binge and Prime to give us that all-important choice of content? We reckon that people love their local music enough to add our streaming service to their monthly contributions. We reckon our content will be pretty unique and in some cases stuff you won't find on any other platform. Our intention is to get our unique Aussie artists locally visible before they get lost in the noisy marketplace of major streaming services. We'll give them their ladder to the stars. So why should we care? So what if a few indie artists can't handle the era of digital disruption? We've still got Drake, right? Who is Drake again?
Who is Drake again?
Well, here's something to consider. Every single artist that you love, every artist you listen to on Spotify or YouTube or Apple Music, the creators of the soundtrack of your life, was once an unsigned local original artist. And how many of them do you reckon you'd have heard if they were starting out today?
Well,
What do you reckon?
that is pretty much the sad story of music streaming and the great story of how the Pack's going to fix it.
This is running
But
away.
now it's a real pleasure to be able to invite two very special people we won't call it a stage, to the front, if you will. It's a real pleasure to be able to invite Alex Dunmo and Mark Griffiths to join us this evening. And rather than having us describe their place in the Pack, we're going to ask them to give you a bit of a brief overview of who they are and what they do and how their work in creative technology, innovation and alternative approaches to business is helping us move towards our mission. So, Alex, Mark, can I call you to the stage? Alex, can I ask you
Thank
to
you.
start, sir?
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for...
Going to lurk in the background here.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for letting me address the audience. That's great. Mel and Harry. So, some of you might know me as the CEO of Ninja Software. We have been helping with the Pack for quite a while now. We're a tech company who builds SaaS products, essentially. So we believe in the power of the internet to build profitable enterprises. In some ways, we're pretty rampant capitalists. So, but I truly believe in the internet as a platform that can really create generational wealth and shift the wealth from the billionaires to the people. The only problem is we have massive tech companies who, well, they're dominating that landscape, and their vision is to suck all the wealth out of every single country and deliver it to them, and not even their country, just to them. And so Spotify is definitely part of that. Amazon is definitely part of that. And it's a real, very, very real threat. And I truly believe that if we let them continue, we will actually end up in a revolution state. I don't want that. I don't think many people actually want that. And I think cooperative platforms like the Pack is how we fight back. We use the technology that they're using to exploit us to enrich ourselves. And so we're also the founders of RideFair, which is a software platform to enable the creation of rideshare cooperatives. So we truly believe in tech for good, and we truly believe that these kind of platforms can make the world a more equitable place.
And up behind you, on the screen behind you, you can see some of the amazing designs that Ninja Software have done for us. And now, Mark.
Thanks so much. So musicians are our most creative souls, get on average only $8,000 a year, yet if you're able to drive a truck, you can get $150,000 a year, well, until automation at least. So there's something very fucked up about that, to be honest. And I believe the Pack will change it. Musicians have the ability to bring joy and emotion to billions of people. They have the ability to spread a political message to billions of people, basically to communicate effectively at scale. And I believe that is critical social infrastructure, and we need to be supporting that and making it more oriented around people expressing their values and what's important to them, rather than who is able to get the jingle that catches to the most amount of people. And Mel and Harry's vision, it's an amazing vision, and it's the most creative, practical approach that I've seen for doing that. So I can't wait to be part of what you're building and the changed industry that we're about to witness. So at Intrinsic, we're specialists in blockchain technology. We believe in openness, inclusivity, and resilience. And whatever you understand about blockchain, today that's okay, but the important thing to understand is that the technology was originally created to reduce unfairness in the way that wealth is controlled, basically. And at Intrinsic, we're all about ensuring that the technology that we're building with these tools is done in the right way and in a way that intrinsically sticks to the values behind it. And we're very excited to partner with the Pack to bring this to the local music industry. Thanks so much.
Thank you both. Did anyone have any questions for the guys before they scooch on?
So we just threw you in there. Any questions?
Talk to people. No.
We've all gone shy.
I am a massive vinyl collector, and I think the best thing about vinyl these days is most of the artists package it with a digital download as well, so it's really cool. But I disagree that we shouldn't think about vinyl too. I think collectors' items and even in a blockchain sense, the NFT side of things is an exciting space, and I think we can add to the income generated by streaming from collectors' items, just like NFTs, vinyl, things like that. So, yeah, sorry, just wanted to add that because I love vinyl.
Look, to be honest, we do too.
Yeah.
We actually had our album mastered both for digital and vinyl. It makes a difference, though, a massive difference. So.
And sadly, we got to the point where we had it digital, mastered for both, but actually couldn't afford to do it because streaming doesn't pay you well enough to afford to put your stuff on vinyl.
So the vinyl's still yet to come.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And I would say, to the points around vinyl and other opportunities for artists is that we're definitely building that into the Pack as well. So part of this process is not only about streaming, we've focused very much on that tonight, but we're also building into the system a space for artists where they can have their own space to create, sell, exchange, whatever value they want to, without any oversight from us. So we will give them a space in our platform where they can sell their vinyl, where they can sell digital downloads if they really want to, if they still feel that those are a thing. They can sell their merch, they can sell their gig tickets if they want to. So we'll create a space that's their space to play in, and they'll get to manage it as they want to.
Could you please thank Alex and Mark? It's thanks to the generosity and persistent partnerships of these two teams and working in collaboration, we've been able to come up with creative solutions to localisation, exposure, democratisation issues. You gave me all the big words. That global streaming presents for our industry, and to dream up something truly that truly can and will create a business model that benefits our music community and our local economies. And that's what we're so excited about. So there are some very easy ways to support the Pack Music Co-op. We've included this, we didn't actually have this earlier, but then everybody said, oh, how can we get involved? So you can become a co-op member from the membership page on our website. And here's the kicker. If you're a muso with recorded music that you'll upload to the Pack when we're live, then it's free for you forever. That's just another way we intend to honour our musicians. Your music is your membership and we acknowledge its value. For listeners and business patrons, you can also become co-op members and pledge your allegiance to the Pack and to the industry for which it stands through our membership page. The links are on the screen, I believe. Yes, they are. Fantastic. And for local governments, corporate patrons and other major supporters, we have a tiered patron package which will be tailored to your use of the Pack for streaming and cultural data. And that's really important to understand. So we're also intending to embark on a living lab project with the cities of Fremantle and Subiaco, and musicians can pledge their music to that project to help us test our early prototype with musicians, listeners, businesses and local governments, and model our fair revenue flows across the system. You can register your music on our website. The pledge link is on the screen. You can share our mission fair and wide and help get the pack recognised by every musician, business and local government you know. As a strong community, exactly what makes cooperatives work. And lastly, we're planning to issue a very limited number of the Pack Music Foundation capital units, which are a way for members and non-members of the Pack to invest in this project. We'll be releasing this by mid next year, post the first Living Lab research test, and when we'll be able to give our supporters real data on how effective the new business model for music streaming really can be for your music community. So drop us a line if you're interested in hearing more. And of course, we can always use extra hands. People who want to partner with the Pack to make music fair again are always welcome.
So before we let you out of here, we want to leave you with, hit you with one more way to be amused by us. With many thanks to Fee the filmmaker, and I want you to see if you can spot anyone familiar in this fabulous little creation.
G'day WA. We love our locally roasted coffee, don't we? Deep, earthy, sultry. Yum. And don't get us started on locally sourced, grass-fed, fair trade, activated soybean beef. Oh, and you can't beat a locally brewed, frothy, hoppy, jolly pint of crafty, can ya? But when it comes to streaming music and music in our shared spaces, local, you're dreaming. It's all Taylor Swift and Bon Jovi.
There's got to be another way.
There is, Blake. The Pack Australia is a music streaming platform that connects local musicians, businesses and listeners to support and grow the local music industry, wherever local is for you. Check in at your local Pack business. So, if you've got a Pack app and walk into a Pack app venue, it'll adjust the playlist to you. Pretty cool. Support local artists through local businesses. Every track you play supports artists and Pack businesses directly. Support your favourite artists. Buy merch, get tickets to gigs, and get notified about new music. Save your favourite music by your locals. Save songs, artists, and even playlists from your favourite Pack member businesses. And artists earn more. Support your favourite Australian artists and curate your local space. The Pack Australia. Music from your hood, made by your Pack. Join the Pack. thepacaustralia.com.au.
Oh, Mel and Harry, everybody, round of applause. And that is the pinnacle of my acting career. Thank you very much. Finally made it to the big screen. How cool is that? In a cinema, no less. Thank you so much for your attention tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We really appreciate it on a Thursday night. And I know there's a lot of information that's coming straight at you. So best thing is jump on the website, have a read through. You'll find everything you need on there. It's thepacaustralia.com.au. Have a look, spend some time on there. And before we kind of wrap it up tonight, on that note, technically this is the close of the evening. There is a little bit more time left for drinks and networking. If you want to hang back, that would be brilliant. But we do have some newly minted directors, and there's a little bit more work to do to finalise that. So if you are, please stay back. We'll ask Peter Wells, our member director, to stay behind and formalise the co-op, which is very exciting. We also have a small number of additional director positions in the pack. So if anyone in this room, if you're watching this going, this is what I want to get behind, please nominate be part of the Pack Music Co-operative family. It's not a small commitment, but it is a big mission, and we would welcome your support. If you'd like to get involved, please stay back in the function space as well. So thank you, everyone here, for coming to be part of this very special launch tonight for Mel and for Harry, and for what we are doing for those in live stream land. Thank you for sending your questions through as well. And one last thing, long live the Pack. Let's all do it together. Long live the Pack! Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week.